I don't want to discount the veterans in any way this year. You know where my heart lies, all of you. So I wanted to do it, safety comes first for them, as well as the staff and volunteers that will, participate. But I've gotten with John Falk, I've gotten with Eddie Wells. We've discussed this at great lengths. I've gotten with Don, about trying to keep safety first in this. But I thought about having a drive-through dinner out at the senior center. We've been doing Meals on Wheels and stuff, and we've been, helping deliver the meals as they pull up under the overhang. And so that's kind of what prompted me to possibly do a dinner there. One of the other questions that arose was how are we going to keep the temperature safe on the food for getting it from the kitchen to the veteran's car and things. And of course, John Fox said that he had, hello, Mr. Deeds, that he had an experience with this down at the First Methodist church in town. So they were able to keep, he's got coolers and warmers and things. So we thought about limiting it to 150. We were thinking about a traffic jam, so we would, let them enter one way and exit another. As far as the budget, I'll have sufficient amount for the budget, and I'm going to help him provide with the beverages and things like that. So advertisement is a huge thing. And even, Don had spoke on that, making sure that, that we do have a good count as they come through, because that is a lot of meals that we don't want to go to waste. But John Fox said that he, could, he knew if we had a lot of food left over where it would go to and how he would handle that. So, and also the Veterans Parade, I have had a lot of phone calls lately. I've had 5 in the last week wanting to know from the sheriff's office, the Silva PD, and the town of Silva, if that's even going to be permissible at that time. So I'm just looking for suggestions, ideas, approval.
Sheila, how much money do you have budgeted for Veterans Appreciation Day?
5,000.
Is that something you can get it done within that account?
Yes.
One thing I think would be, as far as the Veterans Parade, it will depend on where we are at that time, the governor's directives and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because
I think we could decide that now.
yeah, and I don't think right now parades are permissible under the phase 2.
Okay.
But it could change by, what was the date of that? I know November 11th is the Veterans Day. What's the parade date?
It would be the week of Veterans Day. The town of Silva is wanting so they can do the road closure and things like that.
Sure.
And I've kind of not told them anything because I don't know what to tell them at this point. So,
Well, they would understand that. So the governor at that point made a decision.
You could tentatively go ahead and apply, and then with the idea that you would cancel
Yeah.
within a week or 2.
okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
November 11th is a Wednesday, so I guess it would be Saturday the 14th.
Saturday the 14th.
Yeah, no, I think these are great ideas to try to continue to support and honor our veterans, but do it in a way that's safe and meets the current times that we live in as far as social distancing and sanitation efforts. But it's really all we can do.
Okay.
I think that's a very good idea, and I'm very much appreciate your willingness to try to do this.
Well, I thought about, a lot of us have been closed in. A lot of them have been closed in. I've been worried about their mental status and
Yeah.
things, and I just want to give them something to look forward to, for this year. And Veterans Day is, that's the biggest time in our office, and, I just want to do something to at least give thanks. So, well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great idea.
Next item, we have Mr. Poston here to give us a census update, 2026 update. And everybody should have
Thank you, Mr. Adams. County Commissioners, thank you for having me here this afternoon to talk to you a little bit about where we're at with the census and what we're doing to move forward. First of all, we've been operating under the assumption that we would have until October 31st to enumerate as many people in Jackson County as we can. We've been informed over the last couple days that has been changed, and it's now the end of September. So we're losing a month of time for enumeration. That includes self-reporting and the actual door knocking, the actual enumeration, door-to-door operations that'll happen throughout the nation at this point. So where we are, the spreadsheet that I gave to you is we have, what you have is the census tracts that are located in Jackson County. They're 2010 self-response numbers, and then our current self-response numbers. And then we have the overall county self-response from 2010 to today. And right now we're running about 9/10% below where we ran in 2010.
So this number, the current self-response rate is as of today.
It's actually as of Sunday's numbers.
As of Sunday's numbers. And the 2010 self-response, is that as of this same time in the census, or is that the final number?
That is the final number, which
Okay.
would have been the self-response. We're under a different time frame because they extended it because of COVID. So this would be the final number when they stopped counting the last time, which would have been in July of 2010, at that point in time. But we still have about 8 weeks to go ahead and try to improve these numbers. Just a couple things. Dogwood Health has rolled out a lot of dollars to try to support the census in Western North Carolina. A couple of things that they are doing is that they are offering to partnering organizations the ability to do a little fundraising, if you will. They will, if you decide to be a partner and you want to go through your contact list, or your organization can touch a lot of people and you can help them respond to the census, Dogwood will enter into an agreement where they will pay you $20 per person to sign these folks up, not per dwelling unit, but per person, as a way to help try to organize community efforts and incentivize community efforts. We hopefully will have some partners. There is what they call an umbrella partner that Dogwood has that's out of Cherokee County that will work with our smaller nonprofits if they want to be a part of that process. So there's an opportunity there. I think Civil Herald had ran that story last week, highlighting that ability. The only thing that's changed is that originally they were going to pay $10 per count. Now they're going to do $20 because of the condensed time frame. So there's that operation. The county has signed a couple of agreements with Dogwood Trust. One is that we received a $1,500 mini grant to put banners at all of our SRC sites. So if you've been to the SRC sites, you've seen the banners that talk about each community and asking them to participate and fill it out. We also have those for the municipalities as well, and we are working to get those out into the community. Should be hopefully later this week. We should have all the banners out. Dogwood Health Trust is also the second agreement we've entered with them is that when at the end of middle of July, we had a response rate of around 31.6%. And what they have said now is that with this program they've offered counties as an incentive to help continue the efforts, is they would pay $1,000 per percentage point that the county got in self-response, throughout the end of the census time. So right now we're at 32.8%, so that we have earned $1,000 that Dogwood will grant to the county. For each percentage over that, we will get based on the change that I was just informed about yesterday, it'll be $2,000 per percentage point over what we started with. They will also give us $5,000 if we surpass the 33.7% self-response rate of 2010. So there's a lot of financial incentives that Dogwood has given to the community and the county to continue to work to encourage self-response rates. So we're doing that in a couple different ways. We're working with WCU to outreach to off-campus student housing, and they've got they're doing some outreach efforts. they're also going to work with us and probably Dogwood as well, with some students to do what's called a mobile questionnaire assistance center, and where we will find locations throughout the county where we have high traffic volume of people, and in conjunction with and help with our census liaison, they're going to set up these volunteer efforts to help sign people up. They'll have some devices out there that they'll be able to help walk people through if they choose to do that. We believe those efforts will continue to help us improve our self-response numbers leading up into it. Self-response is going to be an important piece of the puzzle at this time, because right now they're still trying to find and train enumerators. So today they started their enumeration process. They will be out in our community and all communities knocking on doors, but they've limited staff and they're trying to find more people and train more people to do that work. So we're working with our partners, and I even talked today with the Southwestern Child Development Center. We will be working with them on some initiatives to help enumerate some harder to count populations, including ages under 5 years old, which is a traditionally difficult number to capture. So there's a lot of different ways that we're trying to continue to reach out to the community and to continue to encourage and promote self-reporting, and we have until the end of September to do that. What I ask of the commissioners and what I've asked of all of our elected officials and even in the municipalities is we're getting to the point where social media, we've saturated our social media presence, we believe. We've been on, we've sponsored a lot of ads over the last 3 months, and we've sent out some mailers to the PO boxes as follow-ups. But right now, it's probably the most effective as we're reaching out to people in our spheres of influence and encouraging them to apply. So I would ask if you were willing as to reach out to your contacts and make sure that they filled out the census. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the line for our county for the next 10 years, which makes it into, when you think about the 10-year lifespan of the census numbers, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal funding that we stand to lose out on if we don't make sure that we have the most complete count that we can possibly have. I'll certainly be glad to take any questions and try to answer them as best I'm able. Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone reached out to the vecinos?
We have been.
Okay.
I think a lot of what we're hearing from our nonprofits, especially with COVID, is that a lot of their resources are going into service delivery and doing, and so, but we've still reached out. We've kept in contact. They're getting some support from the Latinx census efforts coming out of the Charlotte office, but we've reached out and let them know that we're available to help in any way that they need, and we've done that with a lot of our different nonprofit groups that work throughout the county.
And they would qualify for some of that incentive money, wouldn't they? Because they're a nonprofit.
Right, and we talked to them. We reached out to them about that. And I think it's just with our smaller nonprofits, it's marshaling of resources and time to be able to do that. So
Now, could churches get some of that nonprofit money as well? Or?
they could. And we have some information about the umbrella organization. It's a church out of Cherokee County, and they've got somebody hired specifically to manage that process for all these nonprofits, and they're willing to take on from the Western region smaller nonprofits that couldn't manage the paperwork and all that. So we've got some contacts into there. So anybody that's interested can certainly do that. It's a time sensitive matter because we're down to about 7 weeks or so, 8 weeks. So if they want to do that, I would encourage them to reach out to us sooner rather than later so we can get them the information. The county won't control that process. We can just provide them with the contact information.
If someone's interested in participating, who do they contact? What would be the?
But you can come to contact the planning department, and we can get them. We would get them, and it would have to be an organization. They wouldn't do individuals.
Right. Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that information about that incentive, is that available online somewhere as well?
I know that the paper had it, and we've got I got the basic outline of what they're offering, and I don't know. I'd have to check to see if it's on Dogwood's website because it's coming out of their operation.
That's probably.
Other comments or questions? Obviously, self-reporting is what we've been doing thus far, and that's where we're failing as a community, self-reporting. So it's going to take people knocking on people's doors to get some of these people encouraged to fill out the papers. Do we know who has not filled them out?
We don't. We just know census tracts that are and where they're performing at. We don't have specific addresses of who is not reporting and who is. We just don't have that level of detail. And
Does somebody have that level of detail?
the Census Bureau would, but they wouldn't release that to the county. I don't believe that we would be able to get the addresses of who's reported and who's not. I don't
Because
believe
it would make sense to me that if your goal is to try to get everybody to report, then you print a list out of who's not reported, then you go knock on their door.
and if we had
That's what the
yeah.
tracers do. I mean, not tracers.
the enumerators, yep.
Enumerators, thank you. Bill did that, and he got a list of people who had not self-reported.
I can certainly request, but I don't know that we would be afforded that information from the Census Bureau based on just the experience in working with them thus far.
So you don't know who has and who hasn't. If you were to get out and beat the bushes, you may spend half the time with those that have.
It's an imperfect system that we're trying to work through, to be sure, and there certainly could be some efficiencies that we'll certainly comment back to the Census Bureau about how we could better improve it for our area. I think the other thing that contributes to our 32.8%, which a lot of counties and municipalities don't deal with directly, is we have a large percentage that will end up being second home categorized. So while we're at 32.8%, at the end of the process, they will remove all of those homes from the calculation, and our response rate will go up. What I can't tell you today is does that 32.8% represent 32.8% of residents today, or is it 50%? We just don't have that level. We don't get provided that level of detailed information at the local level. So we're out casting a wide net and asking to cast wider as our only ability to continue to engage with folks. And there is a risk that we are engaging with people that already have taken the census, certainly.
Well, we did this round of stimulus checks back in the first part of the year. First quarter, second quarter, I guess it was, second quarter. They really wanted 100%. You could almost do a stimulus check, say you want your check, come pick it up when you got a valid census form filled out.
Yeah.
Checks are here to pick up. That'd be a great way to incentivize some people right quick to fill them out.
That probably would.
I mean, if the federal government's really serious about this.
We got a check from my mother at her home when she passed away in 2018. So,
Yeah.
just saying the check, that wasn't 100% accurate. So. It's very difficult, isn't it?
Well, especially it's like you're saying, Commissioner Dietz, it's like shooting in the dark. You have no clue who to target.
Yeah.
Well, there's nobody around this.
I'll reach out to our census folks.
For somebody like myself, even if there's 6 families on the bus crew that had to fill this out, it'd be easy to go by and see them and probably not persuade them to fill them out. But it don't make sense for me to start going house to house.
Right.
And we'll certainly see if there's any way to get that information. I would say the likelihood of that's probably.
We print every year a list of those that ain't paid their taxes. I mean, if the government would give you those names, you print that in the Silver Herald. These people have not filled out their census forms. So.
And we'll keep trying and turning over every stone we can to figure out how best to reach out to those.
It looks like Forest Hills rocked it this year.
There are some bright spots.
I mean, they overachieved.
Cashers has
Still under 50, but
still
it's
under
still.
50. Cashers and Glenville are the only 2 total tracks that are overperforming what they did in 2010. Now that's a low number, but it's Cashers has a 100% increase in their response rate. It's still low, but it's also in an area where we have a lot of part-time residents. So a lot of these numbers get skewed, but there's no way for us to tell by how much, and so we're targeting the best we can with the information that we have at our disposal at this time, but we'll continue to search for that.
There is basically an article that everything you summarize is on the Dogwood Health Trust website, and it does have an email address, census@dht.org. For
What is
anybody,
that, please?
census@dht.org. So that's where organizations that fit the description should contact, census@dht.org.
Okay, thank you. That's great, thanks.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Next, we have Kelly Euclid, your IT director, also just discussed with us. I just asked Kelly to come and have a conversation with the board in regards to just the video and sound issues that this room is dealing with. And as I've gone back and forth having conversations with IT, it's come apparent that if we wish to continue allowing people to Zoom in to present, then we are not going to be able to come in and purchase multiple cameras as we originally had thought, for the simple fact of how our current situation has to be ran. And I'm not going to go into detail. As you know, as a board, our last meeting, we've just gotten to the point where we can YouTube. And that was something that was discovered online by, I think the person saw the YouTube button there was communicating with Commissioner Mao, and so decided to go ahead and go live. So having said that, what I'd like to do is,
Where is it on?
it should be a link. It should be attachment 3.
I don't know that we even.
No, like if you pull the agenda. We have the agenda.
You don't.
It's the other one.
I don't know if this is on everybody's, but my, image, it's all, the letters are all fuzzy.
Well, that's part of this meeting.
What?
That'll be
Oh,
part of
I
this
see.
discussion,
Okay.
actually.
But they weren't on TV. They were. Look at how there's a shadow. Just one. Oh, I touched this thing.
Hey,
I shouldn't try to move it
Yeah.
around.
There we
The
go.
last time I- No, it's not your fault.
Where the
The
video
last time I
is.
tried to move it, I
Last
hit that
week's
button.
video.
I have any connections to do that.
No, it's online.
No, it's on the
Oh,
website.
the video for the YouTube video?
Yeah, it's online for last week's meeting.
Oh, typical.
I didn't-
Okay, while Justin's going and getting that,
It
Just,
was-
if you go to the website,
but
then go to the
it
website.
was- See,
and scroll down, just scroll down, keep going. And then look to your left, keep going down a little bit. See where it says Commissioner Meeting Video? There. So scroll, if you'll move that screen up just a hair, you'll see where our current meeting is as well.
Do you want me to go ahead?
No, I just wanted to have that available so we can show it to them. So. Share screen. But first of all, let's talk about, I'll tell you what, if we want, let's describe to the board what we're doing right now. And then we'll discuss with the board about why we've switched the initial quote
Okay,
over to just audio. And then, well, we're gonna draw it back here. Everybody seeing?
so this would be actually the first phase to upgrading this room. As you know, currently with Zoom, you can only use a webcam. In order for us to YouTube, we can only use that one camera. What we would like to do is start with the first phase of this room. If you recall a few months back about upgrading the sound and the quality. The existing AV equipment we have is 17 years old. So we can't upgrade microphones, the monitors, there's nothing in this room can be upgraded.
Sure.
So the first part of what we would like to do is to replace the AV system, all new wiring, new monitors, which would be nice 22-inch monitors, and new microphones in this room, which should help tremendously with the quality of the sound and overall for this room. And then as time goes on and we phase out of Zoom and we don't need that anymore, we would like to put in some fixed cameras that would allow us to stream in different ways to YouTube with high quality HD cameras. But we can't do that with Zoom. Zoom can only run on a webcam. So this is our first
originally,
phase.
I believe, just correct me if I'm wrong, but when IT was putting together the quotes, they were doing this sound package that's in front of you,
Yes,
plus some webcams that were gonna be there so we could stream on YouTube.
yes,
But the complexity of it was you weren't able to use the multiple cameras that were needed, that we were trying to do with YouTube.
Right.
With Zoom.
correct.
And with Zoom, we're limited to basically this camera setup.
That's it.
And
Yes,
so right now, we have, until we're out of this pandemic, we really need to keep the capability of people zooming in who wish to present to you via Zoom versus coming in person.
correct.
So until we get out of the pandemic and where we can offer everybody to show up in person, or don't really have to offer them a Zoom option because of the pandemic, we really just need to focus on the sound at this point. But as you were going through and working through this, you had just recently, in the last couple of weeks, discovered how to basically pull YouTube through Zoom. That's
Mhm.
how we were able to do that.
Correct.
Right, or two.
And there's 3 different places that we put the commissioner videos. So if you go on the website, if the public's on the website, they've got 3 different places. I wanted to put it in different places so that they couldn't not find it. So it's currently open to the public right now as we speak. So and it also will show you the YouTube work meeting from last week as well. And we'll just keep those loaded on there until you guys decide how long you want to keep them posted for the public.
And so that'll be something that we'll have to discuss in the future, but, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No,
would you ask a question?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you so much, Kelly, for the extra effort you and your staff put in for the last meeting. You kept us secure, and that was really important. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much for that. And secondly, I do believe that it's very important that we keep video access. And I feel like part of that is because with so much on social media where people are posting things that can be very disrespectful and ugly, because there's no face there. You know, it's just like I can type these ugly words in. But when you're speaking them and you see someone's face, I do believe that's a deterrent for possibly some people saying things they would never say to someone face to face.
Mhm.
And I think we want to work toward respect and civility in our discourse as a county and be, examples of that, which I think our board definitely has been. But encourage that in our citizens as well, and I think video helps with that. That's just my opinion. I am not a tech expert by any means, but I've just seen that. I think people, when their face is there and they see your face, it helps us be more civil.
Mhm.
Do you think that's the case or no?
Absolutely. I did.
So if we can work towards that, would be helpful.
So a couple things to note. So right now, we're streaming live at what kind of delay is it, 20 seconds?
20 seconds, but that's
20 second
automatic. That's just, YouTube does a 20-second delay no matter what equipment you're using.
So a couple things to note here. These are things that we're gonna have to just continuously discuss about if the board chooses to continue to stream live and then also maintain the videos. So for example, let's talk about the world before video live streaming, and let's talk about our world now, okay, with potentially live streaming. before live streaming, you would have an audience, and the audience would go through a process in order to communicate with you as a board. Okay, they would public comment, they would do things of that nature. Now, obviously, when texting became available, they could sit in the audience and text you if they're an audience that know to text you. But they would actually physically still have to be here to text you to know to ask you a question or things of that nature. Now, when you stream live, you're obviously going to expand your audience, and where a lot of you provide your information in the public forum, it could start causing live text to come to you. So one of the things we need to remind everybody is if you're texting right now, if you received a text now that is related to this meeting, that's public record. And these are things that we have to go through and communicate and make sure it's not something you can't work around. It's just things you as a board member need to understand and realize that this is the world we live in. And so, for example, if we were to get a public information request with a text received back and forth about county business, now not about text about your family text you about when dinner's gonna be ready or something before you go home. That's not public records, but what is public record is if somebody texted you and just saw something on YouTube and asked you a question about it, or asked you to communicate something. And so from that standpoint, that's also going to have to be a continuing conversation that how do we archive those things and how do we make those items available for public. And these are things that we just have to continuously discuss.
Well, and I do, this is the old teacher in me, but you can only concentrate on one thing at a time. You're full. I'm talking about your brain focusing and really engaging on one thing at a time. If I'm texting Commissioner Dietz about something, I'm not hearing what Commissioner McMahon is saying, or a guest, or, you understand what I'm saying? To me, there's a problem right there of our presence in a meeting and really being involved in the process of what we're discussing on our agenda. So I don't know where that comes into play, but I would be concerned about that.
And
We're gonna vote, I might be, if I'm texting someone and answering a question that might be a valid question, I might miss information that I'm gonna be voting on next.
I think a bigger question with the texting might be, and cell phones, and it's part of the public record, needs to be backed up. Bigger question might be, should all commissioners should there be county cell phones for certain elected officials? That probably helps you with backing all that content up somehow. I don't know, I'm asking the question. So it's not our personal cell phones, it's county cell phone, and having some sort of system where that stuff could automatically be put to the cloud somewhere. So if somebody asks, they're readily available. Kind of like our email that comes out from time to time. I don't have any idea.
Yeah, we haven't personally as a department had to deal with that. I know they do in the sheriff's office. But I also know that Verizon only stores your texts for a period of time. And I want to say it's 2 weeks before they start overriding.
Yeah.
It's not something we've ever dealt with.
And that's why I choose not to get any county correspondence on my phone. Let me ask a question back to the technical. I have limited experience with Zoom, but what experience I do have from using it at my work for meetings, you can go to the camera button on the Zoom page and you can choose which camera you want to use, or you can go to the audio button and you can choose which microphone you can use. You want to use, and you can also choose which speakers that you're using, because I have a big screen TV set up in our conference room, and I use that as the speakers I use a microphone and camera similar to this, but I have had it use this camera and this microphone for someone who was sitting closer. So you have some options to choose which ones you want to use. What's to say that we couldn't go ahead and purchase a camera system and that camera be the option we choose on the Zoom platform? Or
So the cameras that we want to put in are IP cameras. So Zoom does not run IP, it only runs through webcam.
okay.
So that would be the catch there.
Well, I don't know, I understand what you're saying, 'cause that's what we do, is like the speaker, as soon as somebody starts talking, their picture pops up on my monitor. However, is that device dependent as well, where you can't, I guess we each have to have our own device in front of us with that camera on if we did something like that? I don't know.
Justin,
What the right-
Justin's my Zoom.
So the way the laptop, the way Zoom works, so to speak, you can only use one camera.
Correct.
So we couldn't use both the camera and on the laptop and the microphone at the same
Correct.
time,
Okay.
and the camera here as well at the same time. We actually have to choose each individual item that we want to use.
Correct.
So if we had multiple cameras, we wouldn't be able to Zoom with this camera while also using the other cameras to send the video footage to YouTube. So we, in essence, we would need multiple. We might as well just build a station and have multiple computers set up there so we can actually do like a broadcast. I mean, that's how in depth it would end up getting if we tried to go that route.
That makes sense.
So as they continue on that, is the board in agreement that right now, because of where IT is the board in agreement, okay, we're gonna proceed forward with the sound upgrade? Because regardless of where we end up with camera and Zoom and so forth, we got sound issues and that's the reason I asked them to re-quote things with the sound, because we need to upgrade our sound. And so that would be the first step for us to proceed forward. And then the second step would be, right now, we have a system that we're talking about videos and we're talking about retaining it at some point. If we're interested in continuing the videos, I'm talking about live streaming and maintaining the videos, then you want staff to come back with some policies, recommended policies on that in regards to how long do we maintain the videos, things of that nature. And, you know, it's not going to be much more complex than what we stated here. There'd just be a time limit, and we'd also discuss live streaming. I tried to see if whether or not, I'd ask Kelly whether or not YouTube could delay the live stream a little bit longer than they can. And the reason I did that would help take care of your texting would still be called record, but it wouldn't be a live texting conversation. I just wanted to let everybody know that with this live streaming part of this conversation, it could, if it was a issue like last meeting, it could cause you to receive a lot of text during the meeting, if you're used to having your phone on. And we just might have to explore policies in regards to that.
Is it possible to live stream the meeting on YouTube on one camera and then have another camera for a Zoom?
Yes, but it would require two separate setups. That's what we run into as far as the way it is now. If we wanted to put in some nice cameras and that kind of thing, we can still go that route. But if we're still Zooming, Zoom has to have its own camera, its own phones. So we have to have two separate setups.
And the reason I ask that, because at some point, this all will come to an end, hopefully. The COVID I'm talking about. And we will go back to a more normal operation where we have a live audience. But I really think there is some advantage to having Zoom. And in the world that we live today, as busy as people are with all the conflicts and things that come up in people's lives, what if Commissioner Mao is checking on his mom and dad and he needs to want to participate? I think having the Zoom, or Commissioner Dietz or any of us we could still participate by Zoom, and it'd be a platform that we use in the future, even if there's people sitting here, or if the chair of the school board's got to present something and couldn't be here that night. Well, instead of us trying to rearrange a meeting so that we find a time when they be here, then we set it up to where they remote in. So I think going forward, it could be that we always could have that camera as an option. Now, just anybody couldn't do it. They'd have to call in advance. There would be a procedure you'd go through, sign up in advance, get the proper logins and do all that. And that could be a separate component from the broadcast on the YouTube, which would be a totally separate thing. And this would just be used for commissioners or presenters who couldn't be here publicly to speak and present. And I think there's opportunities. I just think we shouldn't shut the door on it when COVID's over, because I think it has really given us an opportunity to interface with our citizens and with others in the community that we've never had before.
Flexibility.
I think even, so you include streaming on YouTube
Yeah.
indefinitely
Yeah,
too. 'Cause
absolutely.
It's easier for somebody to click a button and watch it on their computer than it is to get in their car. And depending where you're at in this county, it can be quite dry. Or the weather's questionable, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Also, I think if you look at the quality existing now through Zoom to YouTube, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty good. So, I mean, I can understand exactly what you're saying, not to be in a rush to put additional cameras in and continue with this setup, but just to upgrade our existing AV equipment.
Yeah.
I'll show you that. If you look at the screen, and just watch me scroll up and down, and then watch the video. You can see it's a little bit quicker than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
I wonder if this is a screen issue. I can't
Probably
even read that
probably
right.
over deliver things.
Yeah.
It's so fuzzy. Do you think it's this screen? Or-
all right, so we're gonna
No, no,
continue with, we'll keep researching the video.
Don't worry.
We're going to continue
But I
saving the
just want you to
videos
see
online where
what
they're
was
at.
on. Thank you.
Just a reminder to everybody, I hope I can go back here.
I hope so too.
And so, let's see if I can go to. So if you go to the homepage, jacksonnc.org, you just scroll to the bottom left, Commissioner meeting video. Just real quick, if you're trying to get people, and that's the link that'll take you to previous videos
Yes,
and the live stream also, correct?
it's also under the government tab at the top of the page as well.
So they went to government,
And then over to your right.
and it's over people.
Yep.
So it's
One of them.
Commissioner meeting videos,
Mhm.
but I think it's just as easy to go to the homepage and scroll down bottom left.
Mhm.
Okay?
Or you go to YouTube and just Google it or search.
It's also under county links as well, so that's why I just put it in 3 different locations to make it user friendly.
All right, so the consensus is to continue on with the current quotes. Everybody feel good with that? And we'll put that on the next agenda for a vote.
And I will say this, I received a text from our meeting right now related to this topic saying the audio stinks. So I think it's probably a good idea that we keep moving forward with this.
And
Okay.
just for whoever just texted that and is listening, this will be, being someone who's come from an area that's dealt with this for literally over a decade. We will continuously have conversations about how to improve. Okay.
Sure.
Just so everybody at home, if they will bear with us and try to work with us as best we can, we will always have continuous conversations. When you get an audience like that about trying to improve the audio, trying to improve the video, the reason that they were attempting, IT was attempting to do multiple cameras is because we were trying to get a little bit closer. What helps audio, just so you know, is when people can actually see your face. Because you'd be surprised how much people rely on seeing your lips move to
Yes.
understand what you're saying.
That's true.
And so all of these things will be just continuous conversations, and we'll do our best to improve as we go.
Can I ask one more question while we have Kelly here? I participated in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners annual meeting, and it was via Zoom. And Jeff Sorrell, the Director of Broadband Infrastructure, spoke, and he was talking about the importance of having secure technology within counties and some of the issues, and I know we've had some concerns of people, trying to access people's accounts and things like that. But anyway, he said that there's a site called BitSite. He talked about how important it was to be proactive in our approach. And BitSite gives you a score on how secure your technology is. And it's free, and it also gives you a priority rating on different parts of it. Do we use that?
We had an assessment done last year by the military,
Okay.
and it's the same kind of system. I think it was A+ is what we ended up having.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Great,
So
good.
we are.
Well, I just thought I'd ask, since he encouraged all of us to ask our counties how we were doing.
No, that's probably our number one most sought after, is staying as secure as we can.
That's great, good, thank you. And they did mention about the military having a very good cybercrime, cybersecurity thing, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
It's okay.
Good to see you.
Next item, we have Mr. Parker here to discuss propane bids with the board. And I bet they didn't hear what I said about the meeting time.
I didn't hear it
You know,
either.
I did
What'd you say?
have a question.
Mr. Parker's here to discuss propane bids with the board.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I don't know if you know, but I guess I've been in this job for about, since 2011. And shortly thereafter, we started trying to put together some contracts for different items like fuel. And one of them is propane fuel that we use at different buildings. That contract comes up at the end of this month, after having a 5-year contract, currently with, it started out with Smoky Mountain Propane, and Flossman Gas bought them out. You may or may not know that, but they are the current contract holder, and it's around 18 cents over cost is what we've been paying the county. Ms. Baker and I opened the proposals, I guess it was Thursday, and we had 4 companies that put proposals in, and the lowest was Freeman Gas at 25 cents a gallon. So looks like it's going to be a little bit higher for us going forward, but around 7 cents higher. But I wanted to present that to y'all. We had 4 companies, and just wanted to let y'all know what we received. And of course, Mr. Adams said we would put this on the agenda for the next meeting. The other thing we did change, Mr. Adams asked me to include fire departments and community buildings in this cycle, because previously it was just county buildings. I mean, we own some of the facilities that are community buildings, but this opens it up to community buildings and fire departments that are not necessarily a county building. So that's one thing that did change. And
So hopefully those buildings will see the savings that we get because of the fire. Correct?
Is this the local Freeman Gas?
Yes. So I'll entertain any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, and most of those entities already have existing contracts. I'm just trying to think, for example, Willits Community Center down below my house, which is a county facility, county owned. But the CDC that operates it, I know they have a contract with Freeman, or have for years, for their gas service. And that's who services Balsam Fire Department already anyway, Freeman Gas. We've had a contract with them for many years.
But Chet, you reached out, correct, and asked whether or not these entities wish to participate.
I had, yes, a staff member reach out to the fire departments, and some of them got back and then some of them did not. And then also the same thing with community buildings. And some people are not using propane for their heating purposes, but the ones that are, I mean, should possibly could see a savings.
But this isn't a mandate. I'm just.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and that's another point. It's not required for fire departments and other people to join into this. It's just that they will have the ability to join if they would like to do that. Because we did have one community building that asked if they could be a part of the contract.
What does a residential customer pay for the gallon, say, with Freeman?
You know, I don't know right off the top of my head. I couldn't answer that. I know when I first started, we were paying somewhere around a little over $3 a gallon. And when we went into a contract, it was just 18 cents over cost, and it dropped it to like 120 something a gallon. So we've saved a little bit of money over the years by entering into a contract.
Basically, Mr. Parker will bring back the proposed contract to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, Mr. Adams, do you know if the contract or the estimate is from this Mountain Access Control in Waynesville for the sound and equipment? Do we have a provider like that in Jackson County? Or do we? No.
I would need to bring Kelly back in.
Okay. I should have asked when she was here. I'd just like to know that if we possibly have, provider.
You want to do it, Kelly? We're sitting in there right now.
Well, is that okay?
That's what you want?
Yeah, I'd like to know. On the road I live on, Necktown Gap, there's Western Carolina Network, and all the service vehicles, the patrol cars, emergency vehicles from all the surrounding counties come there, because I always look at the labels when I drive by, and they do emergency
Two-way radios
Exactly.
systems.
For fire departments,
Yeah.
I know y'all come there and everything. But it just made me, after, say, when Chad mentioned that they're a local company, I thought if we had the local company, it would be nice.
Well, Freeman itself is not a local company, but
Oh,
it's got an office located in Sylvan.
okay.
So I do know she's used multiple vendors and she's done good, but I'll let her.
Sure. Yeah, she may have. We may not.
We want to, real quick, and we jump to the next one. I just wanted to give an update to the board about the old courthouse holiday decorations conversation. What I did include in your packets is the minutes from March 10th, 2020, when this board last discussed this. I highlighted in there the last paragraph, which states, Mr. Adams, myself, stated that he was bringing in the library board to take the leadership in the conversation. They already had inclusive decorations inside the library, so this was not a new conversation for them. So ultimately what I've done is, instead of this issue coming up again around the holiday season, I've reached out to Tracy with the library, asked her to, I believe she's going to bring this issue up at the next library board, and that they're going to appoint a couple people to sit down with county staff. We'll have we'll have some members from Mr. Parker's staff who's responsible for all the decorations.
Sure.
And for that group to sit down and discuss holiday decorations on the courthouse lawn. And their charge will be to come back and to make recommendations to this board. And hopefully do it within a shorter period of time, maybe in about a month or so that this board can be discussing this issue sometime in October.
Good.
Yeah. I think Commissioner Woody had a follow-up question.
Okay.
Came through.
And I'm sorry, it came to me after you had already left. I'm sorry. I saw that this contract estimate was from Mountain Access Control in Waynesville.
Yes.
Do we in Jackson County have a provider like this or a company that does this kind of work?
No.
No, okay. I figured you would look here first, but I just wanted to.
Oh, always.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that.
That's it? Thank you.
We don't have one. Yeah. Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
Next item of discussion is enclosed in your packets is a very old outdoor advertising lease with Allison Advertising. This lease is for the billboards that's located by the old rescue squad right next to Mark Watson Park, now VFW. So if you recall.
American Legion.
Excuse me, American Legion. And so if you recall, if you come in town, you see the two billboards that are on top of each other. And in the past couple of weeks, we've had some issues in regards to Allison Outdoor Advertising had reached out to the county, and we had some discussions in regards to some material that was going to be put onto that billboard. And the lease that's enclosed in your packets is what was provided to Finance Officer Darlene Fox. And this lease was provided with the first page and the second page, and this is the provisions that are being enforced on those billboards. And just for everybody's knowledge, the county also owns a billboard or owns the property, not necessarily the billboard itself, off of 441 right next to the Emergency Management 911 Center. There's a fairly large billboard down on the bottom end of that property also. So these are the only two pieces of property, the old Rescue Squad building and the 911 Emergency Management Center property, in which there are billboards located on, that there's a lease with Allison Outdoor Advertising. And if you look at the second page of where it has miscellaneous provisions, there it does state that Allison shall not allow third parties to use the billboard for political ads or issues or promotion of subjects which are politically sensitive or which might tend to imply the county of Jackson has taken a position in regards to the political matter. So I can tell this board in the last couple of weeks, with the communication with Allison and some of the issues that are dealing with, it's a strange position for local government to be involved in, I'd have to say. It's the first time I've ever been involved in regards to any conversations regarding content on billboards. And so, ultimately, I'm bringing this issue to the board to discuss a couple of factors. One is if the board wishes to continue to be in the billboard business, meaning allow billboards to be on county property, I do believe that we would need to update this extremely old lease and also bring up the other lease and update that lease as well, the one that's for 441 property. But the reality is, why I'm having this discussion with the board is really to discuss, is this something that the board, or do we think the county should be in the business of allowing for billboards to be placed on county property? And that's a general discussion I just really want to have with the board. We have had legal research done on this. So our attorney, Heather Baker, is ready to participate in this conversation too. But at the end of the day, it was just an interesting set of conversations in the last couple of weeks regarding these particular buildings.
Conversations between you and her.
Between myself and Allison Outdoor Advertising, and also between Reconcile Silva.
There, yeah.
Reconcile Silva is obviously the group that's involved with the Confederate statue. And so.
And they've asked about this.
Oh, yes, sir. They were looking to put ads on these billboards. And they first approached Allison Advertising about this. Allison Advertising referred to this language that I'm referring to now. And at that point, did not follow through with the particular artwork that was asked to be put on those billboards. But then after that, the county was brought in, the county meeting. I actually, I know some of the folks from Reconcile Silva, so we received information from them requesting that the county get involved in these conversations. My initial interpretation was that the lease or the enforcement of provision that you see here was appropriately managed. But as you can imagine, the conversation continued, meaning the group went back to Allison Outdoor Advertising, started having conversations about other language, and then it was still put back onto the county to be involved in the conversation. So at a minimum, again, I wanted to have this general conversation with the board, and if the board chose to stay in the, I don't know, in the billboard business is the right term, if we chose to continue to allow billboards to be placed on county property, then at a minimum, these leases need to be revised. And I can tell you, I was not comfortable being involved in a conversation in regards to regulating speech on billboards.
And let me also add that during that same time frame, I received a message from Allison's asking for me to call. And so I called Allison's. I had no clue what the question was going to be about. So I called, spoke with Jeff Bryson, and he had me on speakerphone. There were several representatives from Allison's in that room listening on the call, and he presented this issue to me. This is a couple of weeks ago, and said, we've got this billboard. We've got a group that's wanting to rent the billboard, but we don't approve of the language. And we have a lease with the county, and he wanted to get my opinion on it. And I said, well, I don't have an opinion to offer you because, number one, I've not even seen the lease. I don't have any clue what the lease says. And it's irregardless of what my opinion would be. I'm one commissioner, and what you need to do is, if this is an issue that needs clarification from the county, then you need to call the administration office, speak with the county manager, the county attorney, follow up from an administrative standpoint. And if there are actions to be taken by the board, if the language were to call for the board's response or something of that nature, then it would be an issue we would take up at one of our future meetings. So that's how Don got involved with a phone call with Allison's to even review this even further.
And that, along with, so that was how I got connected with Allison. But at the same time, I received an email from actually Ms. Newman, Natalie Newman from Reconcile Silva, in regards to this issue. And so, if the board's okay with the board, I may pull you into this conversation. So we did, I did go back and have more conversations with Ms. Baker just to talk about and get a legal opinion on whether or not speech could be, and I don't know if this is the right word.
Yeah.
The problem is whether speech can be regulated on a
On a
billboard.
billboard, yes, sir.
Well, it can.
Well, I'll defer to Ms. Baker on that question.
That cannot be.
Well, I certainly don't want to bore you with too much information, but it's a complicated issue, and the only way I can give you an opinion is to go through some of what's there. At first blush, when you look at this, it looks like you're violating someone's constitutional rights because you're favoring, you're emphasizing favoring commercial speech over non-commercial speech being political speech of any kind, issues, candidates. And in current or most recent U.S. Supreme Court cases, they strictly prohibit that. So if you're trying to create an ordinance that that restricts, has this type of restriction on it, you can't do it. Under the recent Reed decision, which you may have heard us talk about when we brought the UDO to you for approval, we had to go back and amend some of the sign ordinance language in the UDO to comply with current U.S. Supreme Court decisions. However, if you go a little bit further, the controlling case on this issue is actually a 1974 U.S. Supreme Court case, Lehman versus City of Shaker Heights. It's been cited a couple of times since then in other cases. This case it is good because it's right on point for us. It deals with the billboard on the side of a transit bus in the city. And they had very similar language. I think in Shaker Heights, in the Lehman case, it said their agreement with the management company was multimedia, said no political or public issue advertising. And Lehman, who was
Can I ask a question about that case?
yes,
Was that inside the bus or on the outside of the bus?
was on the outside of the bus. The determination for that case, and they talked about it as a billboard, and it's a great billboard case because they considered that a billboard. They said it was not a public forum. It was not something where you're conducting county, or in this case, city business. You're conducting commerce. You're basically participating in commerce like you are with the billboard. It's not a public forum, and therefore it's on county property. The Reed case and those lines of cases don't apply. These cases apply. And actually, surprisingly, at that time, they ruled, it was a split decision, yes, you can regulate this type of speech. City is engaged in commerce, not a public forum. However, it cannot be arbitrary, capricious, or invidious, meaning it's got to be across the board. You have to apply it equally. And that's where I think the research was in 2012 when this provision was put into a lease. There was case law that allows it. This case was also applied in it's an LA, City of LA case where they allowed, again, that was a billboard case. That was a billboard case. So in this case, in this situation, it is allowed under these Supreme Court cases. However, as Dawn mentioned, we don't like being in the situation where it gets put back to us to have to make a decision. That's very awkward and very uncomfortable, even though it may be allowed. So, and the reason, let me state this as well, the reason the court said it would allow this, and I'm just going to read it, it says, in these circumstances, the decision to limit space to less controversial commercial and service-oriented advertising does not rise to the dignity of a First Amendment violation. And one of the reasons is because it's political speech. And I'm sorry, let me find it. Well, basically it talks about not wanting, the city not wanting to appear and show favoritism towards one side of the issue or another, or to show that they're allowing one side or one candidate to use that advertisement space, but not the other. You get pulled into that debate otherwise. And so you recognize probably the very reasons in 2012 the board decided to put these limitations on this lease were for those same reasons, and they recognize that as having priority over the First Amendment violation. So I can answer questions on that.
I have a question. There's been some more recent cases too, and some things where they get into this concept of public perception. Have you read any of that?
Well, I did take Layton's case all the way forward to make sure it was still the Seminole law on the case, and it is. I actually talked with school government on the issue. Are there any, I know there are a lot of other cases that apply this, but on this particular issue, now as far as perception, that's a discussion that you all can have. But as far as the
I guess I'm
constitutionality,
referring to actual law review article, I think from the University of Chicago, that has citation I can give you the site, where basically the standard, the way it was presented is, If the public perceives it to be government speech, then you could have this regulation. If the public doesn't, then you necessarily can't. So if you're driving down the road and you see that big billboard out there by the emergency services, do you really think that that's Jackson County speaking? And that's the standard in this article.
There is some discussion about where the billboards are located. Is it obviously on county property or is it not? Ultimately, yes, you don't want that perception that it's, if it's, you know, if it was right on in front of this building. Although in this case with the city of Shaker Heights, it was on a city transit bus and they allow them. And this case has not been overruled. In fact, it's been cited in cases in the 80s. But yeah, I can see that being an issue. And it is something we didn't know, Dawn and I, had no idea. I don't even know that Darlene knew. We had to get a copy of the lease that we had a lease for these billboards were on county property. We were not aware.
And so a couple of things in that correspondence, I just wanted to note that my initial correspondence with the group was that Allison denied, I mean, there's the little words in the correspondence that Allison denied the word, and that I think my first correspondence said that it looked like the lease was managed appropriately and I had no recourse, meaning I, as a county manager, had no recourse to proceed forward. Because I think the request from that group was for the county to give it a variance or something like that. I think that was the actual word. And so then what occurred was that was my first response, that Allison had denied it based upon this lease. It looked like the lease was managed appropriately and that I had no recourse to proceed forward. But then what occurred was then they went back and reapproached Allison and then started really talking about different versions of the original question. And then it was reposed to Jackson County again, to me. Well, what about this language? Actually, it came back to the county manager via email asking, well, what problem do you have with the language? That was literally the question that came back. And at that point, this is where, quite frankly, it got really uncomfortable. Because, you know, at this point, I'm being asked to make a comment on what is obviously sensitive information, sensitive issues amongst the community. And I'll be quite honest with you, you know, the question about, there was one section that stated something to the respect of, Silva, have you talked to your children about racism? And I'll be honest, my response about saying that I feel like that's okay is I just was not, this is a horrible position for any governmental official to be put in because we're talking about speech. And at no point was I going to be perceived as somebody who denied that somebody else's ability to send out a message about talking to your family about racism. And frankly, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. And so I felt obligated to come back and say, but I still referred to the lease itself. And I said in my email to them, I didn't see anything wrong with the language as it relates to the lease. And so again, and I finished that last correspondence with, this is something to the respect that this is a strange situation to be in, and I'm obviously going to bring this back to the board for discussion. Because in essence, what has occurred under this lease and under this language is county has been pulled into the conversation about, is language appropriate or not to be on this billboard? And that's the reason I used the terms initially in this discussion. Do we want to be in the billboard business? Because if we're going to be asked to comment on language on advertisement, then in essence, we're in the billboard business. And I just personally am not comfortable being in that position.
I would rather the county renegotiate these leases with Allison's to remove this provision, and Allison as a corporation be responsible for managing the billboard in its entirety and put whatever they want to put on it. If they feel comfortable with it, then that's so be it. But it will cost them more than $50 a month or a year or whatever that was. Yeah, $50 a year.
1976.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reconsider all that, but let Allison's manage it. I don't wanna have to, every time you turn around, get a phone call to say, are you okay with this being on there? Because it's really not our choice. They're the ones managing the billboard. They should make those calls.
Is that clause on both the work contracts? I can tell you this, that I know the one out by the emergency center. Commissioner Luker and I had a billboard on that, so this has not always been applied consistently.
Well, and this is the first time.
I didn't even know, yeah.
We didn't even know
That existed.
that one existed, and this is the first time that I'm aware of. Somebody else may be involved, but this is the first time I'm aware that the county has been pulled into these types of discussions about any advertisement on either of the billboards. So the other point that I would make on that, Brian, about just removing the clause and basically telling them that they manage it, we don't have anything to do with it. From a staff level, that appeases me, but I would just mention to you as a board, then you gotta be comfortable with whatever gets put on that billboard. And people can figure out, if they didn't know before, they're gonna know now, if this gets in the newspaper, that it could be on county property, and if they don't like the message, then you may get a phone call about whatever message is decided to be put on.
Well, as long as they're leasing it and,
Then they're in charge.
they're in charge of it.
Well, one thing, you encouraged me when the litter campaign was trying to get some billboard messaging out there, and I contacted them about using this. They, I don't think they were, Allison's at that point weren't honoring this because they were gonna charge us quite a bit. And we decided if we just couldn't afford it.
I think it says it's only if it's vacant though, right? That they have to-
Yeah, and that's a
So
big one.
that's the-
It was, yeah, it was.
And see here, somebody's texting me now, trying to offer their opinion on what we're talking about.
Well, I'll just let y'all know, I don't take texts during meetings.
Now, I'm not answering it, so.
I need to pay attention. Well, I do believe, now, Allison, if they took it over, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, from what Heather has been saying. If they took over the responsibility with a lease and we had no say in it, then they get to decide what's on it.
That could be part of this, yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if you're asking me right now, they manage it, they control it, it just has this provision on it. And this is the only time, it's not mentioned, they got stuck. I mean, they somebody was persistent in questioning it, and so they ended up referring it here to the county. And
Why did they do that?
because that was the only recourse. Allison's was
But
saying,
if it's their billboard
They didn't
and
want
they
to
got
put
it
it on.
leased, and this is the thing,
I don't think they wanted it. I don't think they wanted the language on there, and that was the easy way to get out. They called, well, we
It
don't,
is on there, so it's their deal, it's not ours.
They were told, at least in the email that came to me, the impression was they, meaning the people wishing to purchase the advertising, was basically told that they would have to get permission from the county.
Who told them?
Again, this is a he said, she said.
They,
They basically stated that Allison had told them. But again,
did Allison tell them that?
I don't know.
I mean, you've been in all these conversations with them.
Well, Allison did recognize with them that this is on county property, yes. So, yeah, and on both sides, I believe, now I will say this, from Allison and from Reconcile Silva, both of them involved the county into these conversations. Obviously, they did because they reached out, they called you, Ron, and then eventually reached out and had this discussion with me. They felt like that the county should weigh in on this when I don't believe we should have. And my emails were attempting not to initially, but again, I was not gonna be put in a position where it sounded like I was denying something that seemed fairly benign. And that's the reason I want to say we stay in this business. Okay? And Allison denies or allows, meaning if we still allow the billboards to remain on county property, then it has to be clearly stated that we have no say in it. Meaning if people don't like what's put up there, then we have no say in it. If people don't like that they were denied, then we have no say. And I just want to make sure the board as a whole is comfortable.
And the only other option would be to cancel the contract and take the billboards down.
That's
You-
the best option.
If you wanted to completely eliminate it altogether, then just remove the billboards.
We currently receive $50 a year for these billboards and $2,200 a year for the billboard down on 441. Now, this lease, we weren't really even aware of, but obviously the one out on 441, I
They're
believe, was
making some money.
in 2012. And that, we did check, that billboard was there prior to the county purchasing the property.
I'm sure that's true. It's been there a long time. They did make it bigger.
So this is a question for Ms. Baker. Legally, I understand what you said, but I also know that there's some, it's complicated because I've read the Shaker Heights lease summary and all that stuff. If we keep the clause in there, is the county more or less at risk for somebody bringing a lawsuit forward for First Amendment versus if the clause is not there?
I think you run into issues either way. I mean, I think, and actually, it was helpful to talk it through with Adam Lovelady. I was actually calling for something else, and I just said, let me run this by you, because he's a real expert on the Reed decision on the current. And we kind of walked through that scenario, and we both had that same conclusion. You may have faced these issues either way. So I can't really answer that differently than that.
So again, so that means if we turn it over to Allison and they choose not to allow something, then are we exposed?
Right, it's not us, but then if they do allow, I think the bigger risk is if they do allow something that you don't like, or that somebody doesn't like and comes to you and complains, and it's on county property. I think that's the more likely issue.
And that goes back to the whole concept of the public perception. Is that the county speak, is that the landowner speaking, or is it the entity that's putting the advertising?
Yeah, I think that, I would think that comes into the public forum discussion. Is it a public forum? And one example we talked through is if you had this billboard and you let every group, a different group use it for a month and have their say on your billboard, at that point, you have made it a public forum, and you're not gonna be able to then tell somebody else no when you've allowed out these groups. That's not really our situation, but yes,
Yeah.
you get into it.
So what we want to do? I think
Ryan, I agree with you. I think, in my opinion, this is just me, but if you leave it on county property, even if Allison's is managing it, it's still going to always be a perception of the county, and it's going to be a reflection of the county. I would be in favor of just, if it's on county property, let's just eliminate it.
Okay. What's that seem, what you,
What did he say last right here?
he said eliminate the billboards.
Yeah, that'd be fine, but
Yes.
Is that wrong?
Yeah.
All right.
Get out of the business.
So we'll go
Agreed.
through, ask the legal, go through and start the steps of, there is notification requirements, generally speaking, about 6 months. And then, but this all ends up around February or March of next year when this would end up being complete.
So in the meantime, are we in jeopardy at all, Heather, in the meantime?
No, I think constitutionally, legally, as long as especially if it doesn't come back to us, we
Okay.
continue as it has been, we're in good standing.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
don't want to see the issues come back to us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next item of discussion is the NCACC goals discussion. First, I'll timeline. Deadline to submit your goals from this board is September 30th, 2020. How to submit a goal is, the form should be filled out. Include either a resolution from the board or a signed letter from the chair of the board submitting the goal on behalf of the entire board. So either way, it would have to be a board decision to submit these goals. If you go online to NCACC, and then look at, under government relations, you can see there's a link that says legislative goals, and there it'll give you a summary of, the 2019-20 legislative goals. If anybody would like for me to print them out and give them to you, I'll be happy to do so and put it in your boxes. Or you can go online and review the top goals. And I can just put this, if it pleases the board, I put it on the September work session to see if there's any feedback, and then you
Well, I have
can
another one.
adopt it the mid-month September.
Okay.
Yeah, last year, the number one goal was broadband, expanding broadband infrastructure. I would like to just put out there, I'd like us to consider, and Chairman Matt brought this up at our last meeting when we got the report from Tony Elders. I would like to have that change, and I can't remember exact wording, Mr. Matt, but you can help me, on changing the jurisdiction of local soil and water inspection to Jackson County as opposed to the state. I would like that one to be number one from Jackson County. Now, I don't know that would fly statewide, although I can imagine many counties would also feel that was very important.
Here's what I would, if we do that though, give the option, the opportunity to do that. Because some counties might not have the staff and resources to do it.
Well, that's a good point.
So,
Thank you. Yes.
where I think
You're
we
right.
would be more willing to have
Yes.
those projects all the
Yes.
time. And that would be
That's a good
something to
point.
do, is give it the county, the local people.
Yeah.
The option to cover it.
That option, yes.
And that's a similar arrangement that was in place several years ago that was created for managing erosion control, just in general. The state managed it, and then they opted to allow counties they wanted to step in and take over that. As long as they were as strict or stricter than the state standards, then the county could do that. And we as a county chose to do that. So I think that's a great way to approach it.
I'll still be pushing for internet though after going through COVID. I mean, think about the letters we received
Well,
from
that
constituent this
definitely
week.
is.
That's got to be up there in the top two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In my
and it
opinion.
is absolutely.
For sure. So be thinking about those goals, any particular ones that we want to endorse and send to the process. Like Don said, we'll put those on the work session agenda for September. Any other comments or questions about NCACC goals? Any other business?
I just, one other thing to throw out, this is something that's been brought up before. Darlene did inform me today that she did get a proposal in, and we're starting to implement to put the finances online, very similar to Allegheny County, how it's presented. And Darlene, you say the completion of that will be the beginning of October?
Correct.
But there will be something to show the board online sometime at the beginning of October.
Okay. Mr. Woody?
Yes, did any of you have the opportunity to participate in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners virtual meeting? Well, in light of that, I'd just like to mention a couple things. Jackson County was highlighted. The focus for the president of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, focus for the year was disenfranchised youth. And those are people who are 16 to 21, who are either not in school or not having jobs. And they looked at 2 programs statewide, and our local height program was featured as one of those 2. Marcus Metcalf gave a great presentation. Unfortunately, the video was good. The volume or the audio on Zoom was a little bit fuzzy, but he did a great presentation. And I was so proud of how he represented Jackson County. And then they also mentioned Mike Sprayberry, the emergency management state person, gave a report on COVID, obviously, and then also the hurricane had just occurred. And he mentioned Jackson County as one of the counties that had responded to the hurricane relief. So I was just so pleased and proud of our emergency management team coming in. Bertie County was hard hit. They had 2 deaths and 12 homes destroyed. And of course, their commissioner was talking about that. That was really a hard situation for them. And in light of COVID, it was very difficult. And then I wanted to just mention that the Appalachian Women's Museum, they've been in talks with TWASA. And I know that, Don, I think you have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow.
Yes.
And I know that from what the health department said to us when we had our initial meeting, that it may be very difficult to have a septic system there. But that TWASA, Daniel Manring, the new director, he had checked into a lot of things, and he's very hopeful that could move forward. So I just wanted to mention that too. So when you have that meeting, you can, keep that in mind.
What I'll do is, so Felicia will be out there along with the inspector, and we're gonna go over not only whether or not there's room for a septic system, but then we're also gonna discuss about, if TWASA is involved, it may require some type of grinding pump system. And so we'll discuss that also.
Yeah, that's what he has information on. He's done all the homework on that. So it would be a pump thing. And then Jeff Sorrell spoke to us about broadband and some of the issues, and with COVID and school situation and all that is definitely an issue. So they had time for questions, and I asked him, that he remembered that you had reached out to him about coming, and I said, when will you be able to travel? And he said, well, I wear a mask, I can travel now.
Okay.
So I wanted to mention that to you, Don, so that you could put that on a work session, maybe in the near future. And there is some more money available, he mentioned. And that's why I thought it would be so helpful for him to come see us and, to share specifically about how we could find that money for those areas that are underserved. And then I did have a question about, I wanted to ask Commissioner Mao, knowing that you took the oath of office like all of us did, and you are very concerned about following the law, you've mentioned that today, and I think that's so admirable. I just wondered, in your own personal research, what did you find as far as the law, GS, general statute that doesn't allow us to move the monument? How did you see a way forward legally since you voted that way?
It doesn't say it doesn't allow us. First, it depends on if it's state-owned, and then there's a process you have to go through the state, and they can make the determination whether or not it can be built.
No, that's not the law. the law says that if it's on state property, you have to go through the state. Ours is on county property.
It still has to be if it's state owned or not.
No, it's not state owned. And, I
But
did a
there's
lot
a
of
difference,
homework.
there's a difference in the law if it's state owned or not, what the
Yes, it
process is.
Absolutely.
So we still, and it still has to go to the historic thing.
No, it doesn't.
I don't want to argue about the law right now, but if you want, I mean,
Well,
the
you
big-
brought up some laws today.
I brought up the Constitution, which trumps all state law. And that's what I did the other night,
Well,
right?
no,
So, no, Constitution, yeah, I did the First Amendment stuff.
when
That's
we
the billboard and
voted,
everything.
no, I'm talking about.
Did you speed today at all on your drive here?
No, I did not. I
So
just,
you never break any laws? Laws can be
No.
changed.
well, laws
Can they
can be
not?
changed
Okay.
legally. But what I wanted to say to you was that when I, took that oath of office, I took it very seriously.
So did I.
And I would not vote on something that was directly opposed to the law. I contacted the attorney at the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I talked to county commissioners and attorneys in Adams County who have moved a monument. And if you will look at what the law actually says, if it's owned by the county, it doesn't need state approval to move it. It is the decision of we have to follow law, and it says you cannot move it to a cemetery or mausoleum unless it was already in one. The wording also includes that you cannot move it to a museum unless it was already in one. So the provisions, if you look at that, what that law says, those provisions are very specific. And I know that you respect the law, and I just wondered how you legally would see a way forward to move it.
I read the law multiple times, and I'm looking for some notes I have. I can't find them right now. But I disagree with your interpretation of the law based on what I read on the UNC School of Government website.
Well, you read a different website than I did. Is his name Lovegood? What's the, Adam Lovelady? Lovelady. His is, I think, the seminal interpretation. And if you read that on the UNC the UNC School of Government website, it's very clear that if it's owned by the county.
Let me,
I remember reading a different interpretation. No laws are that.
let me interrupt.
I can get two attorneys in here and watch them argue both sides of the argument. Can you not?
Where are we going with this? That's
Exactly. This is a closed deal for us. If you have a personal conflict between the two of you, then you need to handle it after the meeting. But you're taking up time for all of us that on an issue we've already voted on and moved on. I mean, I think it's time for a point of order and let's move on.
Well, I'm sorry, Dan. I just wanted clarification because I actually asked it because I thought that maybe Commissioner Mao had some legal insight that allowed him to do that. But
okay.
I'll
Well,
just-
that's a
thank you.
question you can follow up with Commissioner
Okay,
Mao
thank
after
you.
the fact. He can share his opinion why he voted the way he did. We do need to go ahead, unless there's any other issues to take up today, we need to go ahead then and adjourn this meeting so we can get set up for the quasi judicial to start in a few minutes. Any other issues? Have a motion to adjourn?
Good.
Have a second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'm assuming, are we going to shut all this down and then we'll reopen?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, where'd that propane contract be?
It'll be whenever, I don't know. What's the date on the new propane contract?
We need some of it today. I'm about to freeze dead.
So,